Fair. I mean, you called it, so it's totally okay. Which means that this one is going to be kept in for
The next one, yeah,
the
no,
one that we are recording
right
right now.
now. So everything that just happened is going to happen at the beginning of this episode. Welcome back, everybody. Thank you for listening to the 99.99% Nonsense Podcast. I'm Caleb.
I'm Jay. What's up, y'all? So as far as anything else goes, I got myself a birthday present because my birthday was a few weeks ago. By the time that this recording comes out, it'd probably be like, what, close to a month?
I
maybe?
believe.
Close,
well, I mean,
ish.
this one is going to be next week. So yeah, so like a month.
Close to a month old. There was something that was announced just before my birthday, and I had been debating on whether or not to get it because I have also been debating on a couple other things to get for myself for my birthday.
Was it a master debate?
I'll tell you one of them. It was such a master debate, and it lasted a whole good 15 seconds.
Yeah, that is a true masterclass of master debating.
What do you call it? The big thing is that the one thing that I wanted to get was a computer case, because for the audience that doesn't know, but Caleb does know, I got my computer as a pre-built, and I shelled out for the main hardcore components, and everything else was pretty much supplementary, including the case, just because by the time I got my PC, the 30 card series was literally just about to rise into the 2,000 figures, even for one of the lower end cards.
Yeah, no, right.
And I got it
mean.
just in time. So
yeah, no, that was mean.
Yeah.
We're gonna look back on like GPU prices. Like I balked at the price of the 10 series cards because they were stupidly expensive. And then the 20 series cards came out, like the 2080 and the 2080 Ti. And I'm like, what are they doing? Why is it so expensive? Gamers can't afford this shit. And then the 30 series came out, and I all but just said, you know, I'm done. I'm just like not buying a GPU ever. Integrated graphics from now on.
The problem with the 30 series, unfortunately, had more to do with resources than it had to do with actual price.
Well, yeah, no,
but
it was so. Yeah, no, I'm gonna let you continue there because you know just
go ahead. And well, yeah, and as of this year, though, on top of the ridiculous limited, quote unquote, limited resources to make said products, the U.S. got pretty much fucked in the ass because tariffs have gone away. So now regular pricing for these cards are now minimum around the same price of the cards that are being sold now. And on top of which, at this current point in time in April, all of the cards are now going down in prices, but the quantity is starting to fulfill more so. So like cards are no longer being run out, but the prices are still at the same point, which is very irksome. And by the time that the 30 series cards go down, we're probably going to be at the 50 series when that happens.
Yeah, and that's
you know what I mean.
That's if supply ever gets back to the height of supply, which was back 2080 series or the 20 series.
Yeah,
like that was the height of supply
exactly.
for microchips, processors, RAM, all of those things. All of those things were being just shelled out from Taiwan and China at like insane rates that like we will never probably see again due to international trade agreements being what they are, and the fact that we stopped all production of almost everything for 2 years.
Yeah, and also it doesn't help that most of these companies that actually make said chips are also making said chips for frivolous other things that are to an extent more important, such as the electronics of your vehicle. So,
I mean, if you've got a driving simulator, who needs a car? I'm just kidding. I'm kidding. Don't shoot me, people. I love my car, but she doesn't actually use a lot of microchips because 1990s.
Right, but that's the thing is like I miss those times where people could actually rebuild their old cars instead of
back,
having to go to a technician.
No, it's coming back.
It's forcibly going to happen because just for the
Yeah,
fact.
no, like you like you can't not be able to repair your own stuff. Like, mind you, things are far more complex than they used to be. But if a guy in Stuttgart, Germany, can like build whatever it is, he can write a freaking tutorial of how to fix it. Like, it takes nothing to write it down on a piece of paper or post it up on a web page. And like the internet is basically infinite. Summation of human knowledge at our fingertips. Learn to fix your own stuff, guys. I mean it. Like, you'll save so much more money, or you'll end up with a dead product that you'll have to pay somebody to fix anyway. So it's really not a lose. Like, you can learn to actually fix your own stuff and potentially gain a skill that will help you in the future, because things transfer over. You know that being grounded so that you can build your PC makes sense. That makes sense for literally any other time you're working with high voltage. You should be, like, you should be either insulated from the ground if you're going to be working with live stuff, or just, first and foremost, don't work with live stuff. Like, just don't do it. Like, remove power whenever you can.
Yep. Just don't do it. We don't want you to become like Ash at the first episode of Pokemon, where he gets electrocuted by Pikachu, but instead of getting up being like, okay, you don't.
Yeah, no.
We don't want that.
Just remember, there are professionals for a reason. Now, certain things that are low voltage, such as your phones, anything that's running on less than, I want to say 12 volts at like a milliamp of power, so most things that you can touch and pick up and lift with you, other than like power tools and stuff like that, those things can actually get really, really dangerous because they get up to like 20 volt batteries and stuff like that. But most low voltage electronics are relatively safe to handle. So if it's not working, try to figure out why. Like, do yourself a favor and actually learn about why things break, why certain things stop working.
And that's the curiosity that I wish a lot more people had, because random side tangent, but not an actual tangent. I don't know. It'll be a tangent, but it'll be a tangent in a little bit, because it pertains to the first tangent at the beginning of this podcast.
Yes, indeed.
I don't know if anyone's following me, but it includes the whole aspect of right to repair. And that's something that a lot of people in the tech, like your tech YouTubers, or like even any sort of YouTuber that likes to fix stuff.
Well, yeah, cars, or like equipment. Like the biggest proponents of right to repair right now are trying to fight John Deere Tractor for the right to fix their tractors, because for a very long time John Deere's had electronics in their tractors that will nuke the ability to use the tractor after a certain amount of time, because John Deere deems them quote unquote unsafe, despite the fact that they're perfectly fine and operational.
Right, exactly. And you know, I don't think we've brought this up. Maybe we have.
Right to
when
repair
it comes to like
for a car.
I know we have right to repair for cars, but like things such as like your cell phone. That's the reason why Apple gets a lot of hate for it, because most of their things are literally made so you can't repair it. Speaking of which, there is a new monitor that literally just came out last month, the month of, it's either February or March, and it's, you know, a 2022 series studio monitor that has a plug-in that goes to the back, that goes to like a port of your wall that's built in. It is not detachable. So in order for you, like, let's just say a vacuum eats the cord, or your cat or your child decides to snip it, that monitor is dead.
Oh, yeah. Yeah, no, which makes no sense to me, because power delivery is the easiest thing to resolve on most devices nowadays, because your monitor is not going to take a lot of power. Like, some gaming monitors do, don't get me wrong. Anything with like 1,000+ nits of brightness and whatnot, and like OLED technology, that stuff tends to take a lot of power when they're showing bright colors or even white screens for an extended period of time. But that's not the same thing as the old tube monitors of like yesteryear, right? The early 90s and whatnot.
Right. CCTVs, yeah. Or Is that right?
No, it's not CC. That's closed circuit.
It's
You're talking about tube televisions.
yeah, but there was another word that
CRT.
related to them.
Yeah,
Okay. Okay.
CRT is
Yeah.
the acronym. I can't
There you go.
remember.
That's
Yeah,
that's it.
it's I think it's like condensing radiological tube or something like that. I can't remember, but basically,
Something like that.
the way it worked is it's a beam of red, green, and blue light that tracked across the screen using
Uh-oh.
a magnetic field at like tens of dozens of times, like per like millisecond. Like it was so fast that the average person actually couldn't see the changing of it like between pixel to pixel refresh, because screens didn't do full pixel refreshes until very very recently, where an entire frame will be rendered at the same time. Back in the day, it was just a single beam of red, green, and blue moving across your screen at ungodly speeds.
Yeah.
And that's why if you ever like
Yeah.
took a video recorder at the time that was at like 23.9, 24.5 frames per second, and you pointed it at a tube TV, you could actually see the frames moving along slower than the TV was
Yeah.
showing to you, because it was capturing the intermittent things. Or you'd see that weird black line down the middle of it, which I always thought was
Yeah.
funny, because whenever you'd watch the news and they had like a TV in the background of the monitor, they would always pick up that weird line, and it's completely defeated the purpose of having a camera pointed at a TV at a camera. Yeah. I don't know. It made me laugh as a kid.
I mean, if you weren't familiar with that kind of technology, yeah, it'd be one of those instances where it's just like, for people during that time, made sense, but for people during now, like people in modern times, it's like, you don't think back on it and look the other way. It's just like, oh, that was how it was in the back then. But during that time, it's like, oh yeah, that's what happens. It's like they could either make it or break it.
Technically speaking,
Especially if you're filming.
Technically speaking, there's almost a full generation of children that have been born that will never know what a CRT is.
If it already hasn't happened, it should have already happened.
Well, okay, so tube televisions
Because
stopped being manufactured in large quantities. They still exist. Like, don't get me wrong. There is like some very niche manufacturers out there that are making higher definition CRT monitors and stuff for people who have like really like sensitive eyes or something like that. I can't remember exactly the reason why they would want to use a CRT, but there's also like really 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 crazy small response times on those. So like they're actually really good for gaming. If you can find one big enough or like with high enough fidelity. But for the most part, they were stopped like being manufactured in large numbers in the late 2000s, because we already had plasma screens. We had like flat screens, which were not tube televisions, that used their phase lens and had backlights that used cathode lights. Basically the things that like halogen lights that were just really really bright. Yeah
no, that makes sense, right? As far as the technology has come from then to now, like, have you seen some of the newer tech for OLEDs, or it's technically now called QLEDs, right? Or QOLED.
Yeah, so
if I'm not
between
mistaken.
it depends on your manufacturer. LG is currently leading the front with Samsung and I think there's like one other manufacturer, Hisense. I think it's Hisense. I can't remember. But basically, at the forefront of technology is somewhere between Quantum Dot, which I think is a licensed patent of Samsung. I could be wrong. It might be Samsung or LG.
I believe you're correct. I think the Quantum Dot is Samsung.
Yeah, but which is basically they're right now they're at a state where they can use only blue LEDs, and by using the correct layers they can change the spectrum of light from blue to green to red. just by shortening or lengthening the wavelength, essentially, or slowing down light. I don't know how this works. Like, it doesn't make sense to my brain because light travels at the speed of light, right? But
Right. I mean, that's why it's called a speed of light.
yeah, light travels stupid fast. It's like a million miles or something like that every second, which is stupid. Stupid fast, incomprehensible to the average person, even more incomprehensible to the average Caleb, okay? So, ridiculously fast. But somehow they're able to trick blue light into becoming red and green light by putting it through some sort of weird quantum sieve or something. I'm obviously not giving this technology justice, but because of that, they can use fewer LEDs, have sharper pit images, and we're getting up to like 16K monitors being a possibility, which is, I think that's 4 8K monitors put together.
Yeah, that makes sense.
Yeah, because 4K is 4 1080p monitors put together. 8K is 4K monitors put together. And 16K is 8K monitors. Yeah, I think that's right. I think I'm doing that math right. But basically, we're talking about a type of fidelity that your human eye can physically not distinguish at certain sizes.
Intriguing.
Which is super dope, guys. Like,
No, it's actually really crazy. It's really crazy how that all really comes together, and how literally OLED and QOLED had barely a similarity, and QOLED is insane. Like, the biggest thing about it in basically layman's terms is that, you know, when you look through a normal screen, or your LEDs or your LCDs if you're old enough.
No, a lot of screens are still liquid crystal displays. They're still LCDs.
Yep. And then OLED, that the blacks on your screen has a tint or a hinge of gray or white because of the light that it's, coming through. With QOLED, the color of black is as dark as it should be.
Well, it's because it's a physical lack of light. It's not that with most LCDs, liquid crystal displays, or depending on what type, there's TN, which is an older panel technology. A lot of really cheap monitors use them. It's a thin film, which is basically the original LCD screen. What it does is it will block like as much light as possible, but it will still allow bleed through, and that's how they create black. With OLEDs and QLEDs, as they are now, what they do is they just turn off the backlight in that portion. Now, higher quality displays will have more and more and more LEDs available to them to turn off localized dimming. Now, with OLEDs, they can just turn the LED off entirely, so black is literally no light coming through or being produced at all. So that's where the dynamic range is that they talk about for HDI or HDR, which is the last couple of years. I want to say 2014 is when it really started coming around. 2013, 2014, high dynamic range was being talked about. As it's come further and further, all of the content you see on like movie screens and stuff like that, when you're in the movies, those screens are specifically designed so that the lasers they use for the projectors, because a lot of these projectors use lasers, just the laser, the photons just physically don't hit certain spots of the screen for the sake of not producing light there. It's not that there's, they're projecting a black light, because everyone knows black light, it's not black. There's no black light. That's not how that works.
Right.
There's no such thing as black light. They're not projecting black light. They're actually physically not projecting any light, specifically in that zone, so that it is as dark as possible.
Boom, baby.
Yeah.
But no, exactly. That's exactly it. but I'm curious because I've been holding out on getting a new TV. Like out of my setup, let's see, my setup currently is 3 monitors, 2 more recent 1440s, and one 1080 from way long ago. I think it's almost like 8 years old now, an 8-year-old
Yeah,
monitor.
so it's like right on the cusp of 1080p, 1080i.
Yeah, pretty much. And the TV I have is I thought it was a 50-inch, but it's only a 46. But that's how old it is because the borders make it look like a 50-inch. 1080 LED. It's first generation 1080 basically. And
Well, first generation 1080p,
and-
not 1080i.
yeah, 1080p,
Yes.
first generation 1080p, and it's on its last legs. It's still kicking, and it still produces good quality video, but it most certainly could be better. Especially now with updated systems like consoles and whatnot. Although the Nintendo Switch runs perfectly fine and looks crystal clear, just because of the technology at the
Yep.
time, but I've been eyeing a new TV to upgrade to, and I wanted to get a 4K because it's like it's affordable. I don't need anything more, especially if I'm on my monitors a lot more. But looking at the QOLED, I'm like,
No, okay.
shit.
So this
Okay.
is where the real conundrum is right now. You can either get really crazy good picture quality, or you can get really high pixel density. You can't technically get both right now
Yep.
without paying
Right,
ungodly
right.
amounts of money.
Exactly. That's why I'm like, do I want to save up for the ungodly amounts currently and have that good? Or am I content with basically like how like gaming is right now where 1080p is starting to work its way out the door?
Well,
right?
1440p is kind of where regular gamers are at as of right now because 4K is still out of reach of most people. I think the last Steam survey says they're still running on the most common card being the equivalent of a 2070, like the equivalent horsepower of like a 2070 or a 1070 like graphics card right
Yeah.
between those two. Now mind you, the 2070 is considerably more powerful than a 1070, but I still think the most common card as of right now still being used by gamers on Steam according to their last survey was between the 1070 series or the 2070 series, all from Nvidia, because AMD's their Radeons have not been flying off the shelves the way they wanted them to.
Yeah, and even now, if you ever go to like a computer shop over here in LA, the biggest one is Micro Center. There are way too many Radeon cards than there are Nvidia's GeForce, and that's just due to tech, and then also to the fact that unfortunately AMD, they step up a little too late.
Yeah, well, it's not only that, but they did too many refreshes of the same architecture, because I think their 480 series, their 400 and 500 series were just their 300 series with minor tweaks and stuff. Like, they didn't actually improve their architecture, and they didn't actually shrink their process, their node process. So right now, if I remember correctly, both AMD and Intel, as well as Nvidia, they're all kind of working on the 7 nanometer process or below. I think the latest version of Intel might be just below 7. I think it might be at like 4.5 or whatever. But we're talking about incredibly small increments, and we're talking about like you sneeze on these things and they shatter indefinitely forever, and like they get Thanos snapped out of existence during the process. As soon as they're done and stuff, like you can technically drop a CPU and it might survive. But during the creation process, the difference between getting peak performance out of this thing and it physically not working could be the difference between like a single piece of dust existing, not even like anywhere near the manufacturing, but like in the room next to it. It's that bad. Like the yields for the 7 nanometer process were like abysmal. Like they had so many wasted chips because of how difficult it was. And mind you, we're talking about things that are like a billionth the width of a human hair. Or something. I feel like it's even smaller than that. Like,
it's insane though. But that leads to the next question of, I can't remember I don't know if you saw this, and I can't remember if it was like some April Fool's joke thing, but Intel is getting in the GPU game instead of having it work through their processors, their CPUs.
Yeah, so integrated, like, Intel did have an in-house GPU processor program. Their latest iGPUs were the Iris series. I think they're on like their Iris like 900 or whatever, which is integrated into their CPUs. Now, for those of you not particularly tech savvy, GPU is graphics processing unit and CPU is compute processing unit. They are necessary so that you can see that which you are calculating on a monitor. Both of them are required. You can't. They're like the happy meal of like you need it all.
Yeah, so the way you think about it is that the CPU is the burger, your Big Mac, or your cheeseburger, and the GPU is technically your fries. Would you consider that? Because you have to, because your CPU is more integral than your GPU.
Well,
is.
Kind of, but it depends on whether or not your CPU is Intel and has integrated graphics, or it's an APU on the AMD side and it has integrated graphics. Now, the difference between the two is AMD has severely better graphics than any Intel process as of right now. Their in-house program, which I think was called Zephyr, I can't remember entirely off the top of my head, but Intel was working and is probably still working on their own graphics cards. Now, the problem with that is they're about 20 years too late.
But, I mean, it's happening.
Oh yeah. No,
as far as I know.
I mean, I'm eternally grateful for the existence of Intel's like integrated graphics, because it made it possible for people to game on laptops before like discrete GPUs became a thing.
Introducing GPUs.
Like, I can't remember which was the first gaming laptop according to other things, but the first ones that could run reasonable games all had integrated graphics with a GPU pass-through, which means that the actual GPU didn't turn on until the game was on, and it would like change and like change over, and it had to be plugged in, and like it would ramp up these huge fans, and like it was still nowhere near as powerful as the desktop version of that same graphics card. Nowadays, like Razer, Alienware, Omen, which is HP's PC builder, Alienware is Dell's. I'm trying to think of all the other ones. Aorus, which I think is Asus's. I might be wrong. But anyway, all of these...
Or ROG? You mean Republic... Are you talking about ROG?
Yeah, no, Asus is ROG. You're right. Aorus is a specific manufacturer.
There's one that we're missing, and I can't think.
Yeah, no.
I can't think of it.
MSI, there you go.
Because we got Alien.
Like, MSI is another GPU manufacturer, and they're also a they're also a game system builder. System integrator, that's what they're called. Like, all of them are basically operating within 0.1% of within each other's like margins because of how good the tech has gotten. So you're spoiled for choice if you have money, but you've always been spoiled for choice if you've had money.
If you have money. Yeah, it's just like, what do you prefer? Like, because then there's also like even though most of my peripherals and some apparel is by Razer, by no means do I actually... I do support them, but I don't support the overpricedness that they have. And that is one thing I will say that I am very proud to do, and I've said it to you, Caleb,
Mm-hmm.
before, is that I don't pay no razor tax when it comes to razor paraphernalia.
Okay, see, the problem with that is you essentially have to pay some amount of razor tax, because even if you get it at a steep discount, you're still paying more than other manufacturers for the exact same components. Now, mind you, they might be better incorporated, they might be better designed, and they might be better overall, but you're still paying for cheap plastic, a very expensive optical sensor, and some metal to weigh down the mouse, because otherwise it'd be a really, really light mouse.
I mean, some of these mice are really nice and they're really
yeah,
light. They've gotten
no,
a lot.
oh yeah,
better.
no, like I think the average gaming mouse is somewhere around 80 grams or something like that. Like relative, like stupidly
Roughly.
light. Like wireless mouses are getting to like the 120, 140 gram range. Now, mind you, I'm using units that I don't actually know how to quantify outside of the existence of mice, like for things like how many grams is in a pound. I don't know. I can't make that conversion in my head. But what I do know is that mice are pretty light right now, and it's pretty cool. Because I remember when you used to have a trackball, and those things were heavy.
They're at least twice as much as
No.
least twice as much as they weigh for some of the lightest mice out there.
Oh, yeah. Like the original Razor, I can't remember what it's called.
Boomerang.
Yeah.
Was it Boomerang?
It's either
Was this
Boomerang or
Boomerang?
Boom Slang. Like, I feel like it's Boom Slang.
I think of boom slang. I feel like it's
Yeah,
boom
so
slang. It sounds
Yeah,
about
so
right.
the
Because that's
essentially
what-
the first gaming mouse was a trackball design. And the problem with trackballs is there were two wheels that were inside that you had to keep clean from hair, from dust, from dirt, debris, or it would just stop working forever.
Yep, and that's the problem with trackballs too, is that you need friction, so you need weight
Yeah.
for it
So
to be
it
used.
physically
need to be weighed
it
down.
physically needed to be heavy enough so that it could grip your mouse pad, because it wouldn't work on any old table. No, it had to be a mouse pad which had just the right amount of friction to grab the ball and move it, but not so much that it would remove skin from your hand. Ask me how I know. Because it happens.
Someone was bored as a child. That's what it sounds
Yeah,
like.
no. Like, mouse pads we have today are so freaking nice, people. Like, I don't know if you've ever been in, like, the custom mouse pad universe or whatever. I got this one as a freebie from Zalman when I went to Linus Expo in 2019, which was super cool, by the way. Yeah, no, Zalman was just handing out free stuff. That was so freaking cool of them. They're also a case manufacturer, and I think they're also a systems integrator.
I can't tell you the answer
Yeah,
about that.
no. They also
I know for sure they're case
yeah,
maker.
they used to
I
make
know
I think they still do. They made CPU coolers for a while, and Zalman was just like they stepped up their game big time, because they started seeing where PC gaming was going and whatnot. So they came out in force for the Linus Tech Tips Expo in Canada, but yeah, it's been insane what we've been able to do just within my lifetime, our lifetime, between you and me. Like, just within our lifetime, we went from, like, I was born in 94, right? So, like, the Nintendo 64 was just around the corner.
Oh, that's right. You didn't have the 2 year. Well, yeah, you were a little bit younger than I was in order to enjoy
Yeah,
it.
no,
I was around for the Game Boy Color to actually process the Game Boy Color.
Yeah, no, I
So,
grew up and
that was
I
my
had
first
old
console.
tech. It was old tech by the time I was able to play and understand it. Like, I think I played Pokemon Yellow version. That was the first Pokemon I played. The Pikachu Special Edition Yellow version. And I wasn't able to play that till I was 6, so, like, I didn't actually start playing Pokemon Yellow until like 2001 or 2002 or something like that.
Excuse me, but yes.
Yeah, by then,
I
yeah,
got to.
no, that's
Go
by
ahead.
then Silver, Gold, and Crystal were already out, and I think Emerald, Ruby, and Sapphire were just about to drop.
Yeah, so I grew up with the original Pokemon coming
Hmm.
out. Back then, over at like shops like Best Buy and GameStop, was it GameStop? GameStop? Yeah, GameStop was still GameStop, but I didn't have a GameStop. I had a video game store called Planet X,
That's cool.
which then got bought out by GameStop, and then they became GameStops. You might have grown up with an EB Games,
We had
which is also another
we
game
had
store.
Blockbuster. That is all we had in Hawaii was
Was that
Blockbuster.
was that your only way of getting games?
Yeah, or to buy them directly, like directly from.
To buy them directly from like video game shops?
No, there were
From,
no
like,
video
smaller
game shops. I think Walmart would carry them sometimes.
Oh, okay. Okay. So like Walmart or like any electronic shop? Like Best Buy, Circuit City, not Century City, Circuit
I
City.
don't think we had a Best Buy for the longest time in Hawaii. Like I don't remember.
Okay.
Like
okay.
we had Kmart and then Walmart.
Oh, video games showed up in Kmart
Yeah,
as
no,
well.
like-
Kmart and Walmart.
You know what? It might have been in
Target.
Toys R Us. There you go. Video games might have been at Toys
Toys
R
R
Us.
Us definitely.
That's
okay. Yeah.
If I remember correctly, that is where. No. My brother stole the first Game Boy we had, so like that was a thing. I'm pretty sure because we definitely didn't buy it.
Okay. Okay, because what do you call it? Because I always forget sometimes the luxury of what it is to be a mainlander compared to.
Oh yeah, no, being an islander,
being in
we are
Hawaii.
so cut off of all the things.
Well, when it came to technology, when it first started coming out, I completely understand.
Nobody wants to
because,
pay
yeah, I
to
had the
ship
luxury.
like hundreds of thousands of pounds of just plastic cartridges over to like Hawaii.
Little did they find out that those little plastic cartridges would be an influx of revenue.
Oh yeah, no,
but whatever.
huge. Like, I think. I wonder if you did like an economic impact of like every game manufacturer or like every company who had like the largest economic impact on the industry from year to year to year
I mean, it would have to be Nintendo for a while.
for a lot of stuff. But like before that, we
Yeah.
had Sega. Like we had ColecoVision. We had I'm trying to think of all like the other like gaming systems that came out in America before Japan just made everything better.
I mean, well, even then, Sega by and by
Mhm.
would probably be the number one, but it would still be hands down Nintendo, and it was Nintendo up until they turned away Xbox, till they turned away Microsoft. Because even like the Nintendo, was it the GameCube that out was? No, it was the N64 and the Dream. When did Dream? It was N64, PS1, and the Dreamcast.
Yeah, those
correct?
were the
That was that generation.
those were the leaderboards of that generation. Xbox came out after the PS.
After with the PS, because it was the PS2, Xbox original, and the GameCube. And here's the thing, and here's the story that I love to hear over and over and over again, is that Microsoft and Sony offered to do a pairing with Nintendo, and Nintendo gave them a big fuck you, and they both created their own consoles, and look what happened to that big fuck you. Like, granted,
I don't know.
I will still
I don't
say
know a
the
single person who doesn't also own a Switch on top of whatever console they have.
but that's the thing, is the Switch was secondary. The Switch has always been secondary, even though it is the number one console. But the thing is that the only thing that's solely keeping Nintendo afloat are their IPs.
Oh yeah, no, but you're never going to get a port over to PlayStation or over to Xbox of the Pokemon series. You can emulate it because let's face it.
Like without an emulator. I mean, because both Sony and Microsoft consoles are essentially supercomputers, just outdated.
Oh, I
than
mean, yeah,
current
no.
gen.
So if you were to take the Xbox Series X and you take the PS5 and you try to fit them into the timeline of actual like CPU GPU horsepower, they're on par with I think the 10 series.
Currently 10 series,
Yeah,
I believe. Yeah.
Right about on par with 10 series. But consoles have always been about like 5 to 8 years behind whatever is the bleeding cutting edge of GPU technology, just by the sheer fact that it becomes infinitely easier every single year to make the previous year's processor.
Yeah, because once it's outdated, manufacturers that's exactly it. It's the same thing with phones. That's the reason why Apple does their thing so well, is because other phone manufacturers put up the current technology, and that it is later implemented / perfected by Apple.
Oh yeah, until they started doing their M series processors, which are in-house and are their own. Like the M1 processor they have in the their new flagship Mac Pro or whatever is actually like really good according to a lot of people. I haven't done the deep dive.
Unfortunately, the processor's good, but unfortunately everything else surrounding it is Apple. So therefore, they make you lock it up.
No.
Essentially, they force feed you to be standardized.
I mean, it just look at their screens. Just look at the screens on any Apple device. You're going to see that they're all aligned to the upper left-hand side. You're going to see that you have to scroll through several pages to find any app, or you can slide down from the top and search for the app. I understand that's a feature now. That didn't used to be a feature. Enough people complained, and Apple sued enough jailbreakers in order to realize that, yes, this is actually what people want. So, that was a thing. And why is jailbreaking illegal? That doesn't make sense to me.
Right to repair.
Yeah. No, it's software. You're physically
repair.
not doing anything bad. You're not even like accessing the device directly. You're accessing it through a secondary layer that wasn't put there by Apple. You own the device already. Why can't I sideload Windows ME? I'm just saying.
Stop repeating the truth.
Yeah,
Caleb.
no, like
all of us Apple users don't want to hear what we've heard for decades at this point. You're right. You were wrong. Well, shut up.
No.
No.
No,
I know.
Don't get me wrong, though.
It's true, though.
It was an quick and easy way to get into tech as a kid, right? Your parents would get you an iPod or something, and then, like, if it broke, well, hey, it's already broken. I might as well find out how it works.
Yep, no, I was the exact same way. Like, I still have all of my... Actually, scratch that. I still have all of my previous, like, iPods, iPod Nanos, iPod Touch, whatever. All of the weird-ass generations from when it went from glass, which was baffling at the time, like a full glass screen, which still, I guess, you could still technically continue on, to flushed aluminum. And then form factor change, went from a small rectangle to half that size when you introduced the Nano. And then introduced the reiteration of the Nano, which then became a small square. And then you introduced the Touch, which is a lame version of the original iPhone. And then a couple generations of that. Yeah. I'm just trying to think of all the history of that.
Yeah, no, I had
Handheld.
2 4th-gen iPod Touches, a 32 gig and an 8 gig, and I put duct tape on the back of them so that I could use them as a folding phone.
I like it. I still have my... Oh, actually, I think I might have it on me. I think I still have my original... No, it's not original iPod. Because I had an original iPod, but unfortunately, that got...
Super dead.
That got... No, it wasn't even that. It was borrowed by an ex, and that ex said, quote unquote, she lost it, which hard to believe.
Yeah, right, lost it.
Right. So I think I have 5th generation iPod. I think I have the iPod just before the iPod Touch came out. Let me see, because it has also a skin for Decepticons from Transformers, so let me see if I can find it. But yeah, other than that, like, granted, what Steve Jobs and everyone over at Apple did, I mean, they kind of revolutionized phone tech.
What they revolutionized was marketing.
I was going to say marketing, but I mean, sure, Caleb, you can go ahead and jump the gun.
Straight up, what they did was they made a product that no one knew about and then they made everybody want it without knowing what it is.
High key. Hashtag Zune, baby. Hashtag Zune. Yeah, I literally looked through one drawer and it wasn't there, and I was like, you know,
I'm not
gonna
gonna keep wasting that much time on something. You'll find it eventually.
Yeah, eventually. But overall, but
Big but.
drop the bass, drop the bass. The big but was going back to literally the first tangent before we got into this whole podcast about technology, because we literally have a whole podcast full of technology.
The gift for yourself.
The gift for myself. So initially, I wanted to get a computer case, which was the Lianli 011 Dynamic, but this new version of it, which is the Evo, because it's slightly bigger on all three sides, so height, width, and depth. They're actually a couple centimeters bigger, so I guess like an inch or two. But the reason why I like it is because it's fully customizable as far as it comes to being left-sided or right-sided, because most computer cases currently are generally tend to be right-sided cases if you decide to display it. For me and my current setup right now, the most ideal place is under my desk, which is not cool to enjoy, but I mean, I do like the pleasure of having a lot of desk space. Or on the left side, which would be on top of my drawer set, that would be kind of cool to see. And also the thing that is also featured for that case is that they have a hanging GPU bracket with riser. So I would love to have my 30 series GPU
just front and center,
just dangling, you know, and I think that'd be pretty cool. Also, for around the same price, because I'm not saying the price, because the price will probably change by the time you look at it, but let's just say it's over 150.
Fair.
The other option would be there's this clothing company, this apparel company, who makes replica Steven Universe jackets for Steven Universe Future. And I've missed out on getting one every year that they've announced them, because every year they create a new look on the inside. The outside's still the same pink, like jersey, bomber jacket kind of looking style. Or Letterman style, I should say, Letterman. But the inside is different linings, whether it's like Cookie Cat or like Steven Star. This year it's Ruby and Sapphire and Garnet. Their gems are on the inside and they're reversible. And that was going to be released on April 1st. Or the third thing, which I'm just going to bring out because I didn't get either of those. The third thing I got is this baby.
Is that the DeLorean as a Lego set? That's freaking amazing. So, DeLorean will only ever refer to the Back to the Future DMC-12. This is the DeLorean. If anyone refers to any other DeLorean at any time whatsoever, it is a DeLorean, not the DeLorean.
The DeLorean. Yes. Speaking of the DeLorean, they are actually bringing it back as a fully electric car. I think not this year, but maybe next year or the year after. By the way, I don't think you knew that, which is surprising for you being a car guy. But yes, the DeLorean has been bought out by a full electric. I can't remember which company bought the rights to having the model DMC-12, but it is coming as full electric, by the way.
I don't know whether to be, like, excited or, like, my soul feeling like it's being trampled upon.
I'm actually excited because it's a fully electric car.
Okay, so here's the thing. Like, a company did buy a warehouse so that you could actually buy brand new to you, like, stored parts, because all the panels on the DeLorean were stainless steel, which means that they actually kept, and they were kept in a relatively safe and dry place. And you could basically rebuild a DeLorean with all of the spare parts they had, because, you know, DeLorean, like, he went to jail for stuff, and, like, his company died. but it didn't mean that they didn't still manufacture a whole bunch of these things. Mind you, the one thing I'm excited about that means that it's actually going to have power now. Because the original DeLorean had no power.
No. Just like in Back to the Future 2, don't you know anything, McFly? Hoverboards don't work on water.
They don't have the power. Yeah.
Unless you got power, correct. So DeLorean's... that announcement, I think, was mid last year, like just before summer or just after summer last year. But yeah, it was. I was surprised that didn't get brought up to you.
Completely over my head, apparently, because I don't know. Just thinking about it, it's already a really heavy car for what it was supposed to be.
Right.
John DeLorean,
and it had what, vertical doors? It had
gullwing doors.
What are those? What? Yeah, it had. Yeah, exactly. Which is insane for it to be stainless steel as well.
The door itself. Stainless steel is only the outer body panel. The rest of it was bonded plastic, I believe. It's either bonded fiberglass. That's what it was. So
it was to compensate for the weight.
Compensate for the weight of the steel, because DeLorean didn't want colored vehicles. He wanted everything to look like a freaking spaceship, and he did a really good job.
Which I'm not against. I was like, which no one was against. No one was against. Everyone was against the shit that he did to lose the company. Because I'm sure as hell that if he kept his bearings right and kind of decided to kept his nose clean and decided, you know what, stainless steel is kind of like as awesome as it can be and as kind of, tanky as it can be, maybe we could go for a brushed aluminum. I think things would have gotten better.
I think so too, but okay, aluminum is way too soft.
You know what I mean.
But
I hope you know what I mean.
I mean, there are harder aluminums that you can use. Like, don't get me wrong, most alloys can be pretty strong and resistant to scratching, but you see the scratches. He's looking at his DeLorean, he's smiling so brightly, and it just makes me so happy to watch him smile that way.
I just got it today, and I opened it just before you got here. Before we started recording, because I was torn. The computer case, I was like, all right, I could get that whenever, and chances are they'll probably make an XL version of the case so I could have more room to put shit in, and the Steven Universe jacket. As much as I love wearing pink, I mean, I still got it, but I have payments on bi-weekly, so I'm just like, oh, it's not going to kill me by getting it. But this baby, instant gratification as soon as it came in.
Now you...
And I love Lego.
If it doesn't have a little piece that looks like the flux capacitor, I feel like you've been robbed.
That's literally what I started smirking and smiling and gleeing at. It's its own power brick. It's its own light brick.
Oh, that's amazing.
So, fun fact about this build is that it is one of the premium builds that Lego has been announcing. I think every quarter they've been releasing a creator's build of a vehicle. The last one before this, I think, was the VW bus, and then the one before that was the ectoplasma from Ghostbusters. Unfortunately, I didn't grab that. I kind of want to, but I'm not too keen on it.
It's not, in my opinion, it's not as econic.
Yeah, I mean, well, it's not iconic to us because, I mean, even this is us for sci-fi. Unfortunately, the ectoplasma from Ghostbusters is more heavily dedicated to those who are 80s kids. For sure. Even this car is, because this was 1985. This was the 1985 thing. I mean, Ghostbusters was 83 and then 86, if I'm not mistaken. But still, I mean, this is a spaceship.
Yeah, no.
A future spaceship.
I mean, it's just... It is one of the cult classic cars that will probably never die because of how many people love this movie. Or, well, set 3-part movie. I include all 3 parts in the Back to the Future movie because it is one movie that is in 3 parts.
Yeah, I agree. Even though most people don't recognize the third part, I mean, it has its quirks.
Hey,
I mean,
I
I
actually
love it
really
for a
like the
certain
third
thing,
part.
but
Like the second part is definitely the one I like the most for some reason because future.
oh, you and
Yeah,
me both. You
like
and me both. We both like the second one
yeah,
the
no,
most.
like I love the original. I love part one because who doesn't love him going back and like his like I just think I don't know why I found that scene so hilarious, but like the act.
The dynamic with his
Yeah, no,
mom.
him and his mom, the interactions between him and his mom, like just get me every time.
Mm-mm.
I think it's hilarious, but like
Oh, I
uh,
can't. I
uh,
can't. I
I know,
cannot.
but like because it's like it's so far devoid from my relationship with my mom. I just think it's hilarious. But like yeah,
Understandable.
like that is why it's the juxtaposition of the two. Anyway, I am definitely not Freudian if anyone knows what I'm talking about. Uh yeah. But the main thing is I've always loved thinking about the future. Like even when I didn't even understand what time really was, I always thought tomorrow was
Mm-hmm.
going to be better. Like tomorrow's going to be
I
amazing.
mean, I mean that's the mentality that a lot of people should have, regardless. But even if it isn't like spaceships and lightsabers and like time machines and
Mhm.
whatnot, but just having that mentality of like tomorrow's a new day and there's something more to
Yeah.
see. You know, that's positivity that isn't toxic, and it's a mindset, right? It's a mindset that if you continue to have
Yeah.
that, and I'm not just talking just for
Mhm.
you, you know, if that's a mindset that you have, it does a lot more good than it does
Yeah.
bad.
I mean, you do need to take steps to make it possible for tomorrow to be better. Like sometimes you do need to do things today, like buying a Back to the Future Lego set, so that by the time you build it, tomorrow when it is built, it will be glorious.
Oh, you already know I'm going to be building
Yeah,
this.
yeah, no,
Yeah.
I know. I had to make that reference directly, but
So, as far as features on this Lego set, it's just the one vehicle, but it comes with accessories and parts to make it the DeLorean for all three films. So, hindsight, if I was that guy, I would buy three of these
and just
and just
build
have
them
one
out.
for
Yeah,
each
and just build
movie.
them out. Yeah. If you were that guy
But
who had that kind of money, you would also have every version of the Death Star.
you know what? You're absolutely right. I was having this conversation with one of my high school buddies who, oddly enough, we haven't really talked for a long time. The last time we talked, unfortunately, was because one of our friends and classmates ended up passing away unexpectedly.
Mm-hmm.
But shout out to him, and rest in peace, my guy. Um, he was dumbfounded to see that I posted this and that I was about to buy it. And we end up coming to a conversation for the fact that Lego is basically the monopoly of this type of toy. I mean, sure, you have Mega Bloks and some of these other ones, but for the most part, Lego reigns supreme. And we were discussing on how stupid the prices for these sets are, and it's solely for the fact that's because they
Oh
can,
yeah, no,
you know.
you're not. No one else
Um,
is going to get. No one else is brand recognition wise. Like I remember Connects, which is great. They still exist, by the way. Connects is the plastic set that allowed you to build like moving sculptures and those types of things. Like, I mean, Lego can do that now too, but for a while it was Erector sets, Connects, and Lego, and they all kind of like jockeyed to be uh, the number one toy for kids. But then parents said that it was too dangerous for kids to be playing with metal and screws and stuff, and they would rather step on a Lego than a washer or a nut or a bolt or some very sharp piece of metal that the kid forgot to sand down after he took it out of the box.
right,
Yeah.
exactly. And speaking of the Death Star, if I'm not mistaken, the last Death Star was close to $1,000, if not
Oh,
more,
it's
if I'm
it's
not
even more now.
mistaken.
Like the one.
Well, yeah, because it's the reason being is like, unfortunately, the hardest part about Legos is that they are also seasonal. Unfortunately, like
Well,
they decide when things are going to be released, and they will quickly
so
stop
the real
the
issue I
releases.
have with Lego is they will only produce certain pieces from a set for that season. Every other piece in their set already exists. Like,
True.
every combination permutation of a block you can possibly think of is already a Lego.
Mm-hmm.
Except for those very specific pieces that complete whatever project you're doing.
Yep. I mean, for the most part, you can like, if you go to a Lego store, like, not Lego store, if you go to, well, I mean, you can go to a Lego store, but, like, if you go to the Lego shop online, you could buy all these pieces individually for as many as you want. Granted, it's going to cost you more because you're specifically asking for a certain amount of pieces.
If I want, like, a billion 2x4 bricks so that I can build my own house with Legos, I could, in theory. It would take a very long time to get to me. And I would never finish building this house in my lifetime. But, you know, it's possible.
Yeah, it's most certainly possible. But, yeah, Caleb's correct. As far as, like, certain pieces, like, I still have and some pieces that are legacy pieces, like, I have the original Slave 2. I was about to say 1. Slave 1 is Django's ride. Slave 2. I have the original Slave 2 Lego set that was released when Star Wars / LucasArts / Lucas Pictures, just basically George Lucas said yes to teaming up with Lego to create Lego sets that are Star Wars. I still have the original set. I checked the price on the original set, even though they have made multiple versions afterwards of it. It's a goddamn pretty penny. It's a fucking grail.
Oh, yeah.
Even for the fucking pamphlet.
Yeah.
You know, and it's just like, it's crazy. Because the thing is that I will say this, Legos is for everyone, and everyone loves the Legos. Even if you say you don't, you know that if there is a child playing with Legos, you're going to play with it too. And if you don't, you are a monster and deserve to, you know...
Step on one.
Just... Yeah, exactly. Yeah, perfect example. I'm like, I have never not met a person who doesn't like Legos.
That was like three negatives in the same sentence. You've never not met a person who doesn't like Legos. I'm trying to follow that, but I'm pretty sure what you're trying to say is everyone loves Legos.
Exactly. Yes. That's what I said.
Never not met a person who doesn't like Legos. So it's like you've never met a person who doesn't like Legos. You've never not met a person who does not like Legos. I'm really confused. It's like
But my statement is still correct. Correct.
But that's three negatives.
I just accentuated it a bit.
But the three negatives, I'm pretty sure if I were to extrapolate the way the negatives would pertain themselves, what you're really saying is you've never met a person who does like Legos. Because you've never not met.
No, because the three negatives... The three negatives...
Okay, so you've never met them.
Never met a person who doesn't.
Okay, so... But there are three. So you've never met, so that's one negative. You have not met a person who doesn't like Legos. You've never not met a person who doesn't like Legos. The not makes it mean that you have only met people who do not like Legos.
But the never not only pertains to the people, not the doesn't like Legos.
I don't know. Chat. Let's figure this out because English sucks.
Because if it's never not doesn't like Legos, that's the triple negative. I use the double negative space single negative.
Okay, so if it were a single run-on sentence...
Because the double negative... No, if it was a single run-on onto that one noun, pertaining to that one noun, which is Legos, or person, even if it's person, then yeah.
I think it would have to come down to where you placed your commas. Because you said you've never not met a person who doesn't like Legos.
But the never not pertains to me, and then the doesn't like pertains to the person. So it's two separate subjects.
And it's...
two separate entities.
100% nonsense, in my opinion.
This has been our podcast. I am Jay.
I am Caleb.
Have a good one, guys.
Good night.